Vi do il benvenuto da Milano e vi salutano anche i miei colleghi dell'ambasciata di Roma e dei consolati di Napoli e di Firenze che insieme a noi partecipano oggi a questo programma. Siamo al nostro primo incontro nell'anno nuovo della serie Transatlantic Thursdays. Mi chiamo Tony Deaton e sono il console per la stampa e la cultura presso il Consolato Generale degli Stati Uniti a Milano e poiché il programma è in inglese, I will switch to English. Ma lasciate che vi ricordi che noi facciamo anche qualche volta programmi in italiano, per cui vi invito a seguirci a Facebook, dove potrete trovare informazioni sui nostri programmi futuri. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are excited to have you joining us from across Italy. Transatlantic Thursdays is our regular virtual program with the Mission Italy, the U.S. Mission to Italy. It's a series that allows us to keep the conversation going with all of you on issues of mutual interest. We have a full lineup for the month of February, wonderful events, and I'll let you know more about them at the end of today's program. This afternoon, we have something very special. We have a panel discussion about our Young Transatlantic Innovation Leaders Initiative, or YTILI. That's the acronym that I'll use. YTILI is a competitive exchange program sponsored by the U.S. Department of State, and it's designed for business and social entrepreneurs across Europe between the ages of 25 and 35. The focus is on enhancing business and leadership skills, and the program includes a 5-week experience in the United States. Now, if you aren't 25 yet, you soon will be, and now is your chance to prepare for that application in the future. If you're over the age of 35, we hope you'll listen closely because you probably know somebody who would benefit from the experience, and we hope that you'll share that information with them. And I want to say that the application period for YTILI is now open, and it will continue until March 1st. And you can apply at www.ytili-worldchicago.org. Promoting educational and cultural exchange programs is central to our diplomatic engagement around the world. In all sectors, from academic research to the arts, to promoting entrepreneurship, we seek to advance democracy, security, human rights, and sustainable and inclusive economic and political policy. And YTILI is an important part of that effort. Through YTILI, we are building a transatlantic network of next-generation entrepreneurs so that we can all move forward together to meet the economic and social challenges that we face as a global community. Now, I know you have a lot of questions. You may be asking yourself, is YTILI right for me? Am I eligible? How do I apply? What's the program like? Is there somebody who's done it before who could tell me about their experience? Well, today we have the answer to all those questions. We have a fabulous panel lined up that includes Peggy Parfenoff, who is the president of WorldChicago, which is our implementing partner organization and runs YTILI on the ground in the United States. We also have WorldChicago's program director, Mary Sancibrian. And then we have 3 distinguished alumni of the YTILI program from Italy. First, Peeva. She's a co-founder of EduActive, a social enterprise that works all around the world promoting youth education and job market access. We have Luigi Fidelio, the co-founder and chief management officer of Messagenius, which provides enterprise messaging for secure, integrated communications. And Paolo Belligeri, co-founder of several entrepreneurial ventures, including Ice King, which is a startup that combines sustainable tourism and citizen science on glaciers. She also happens to be an assistant professor in the School of Engineering at the University of Pisa. So after our panelists give their presentations, there will be an opportunity for everyone in the audience to ask questions. At any point, you can type your question into the comments section on the YouTube or Facebook platform you're using to live stream this. And so with that, I'm pleased to kick off today's program and present Peggy Parfenoff and Mary Sancibrian to tell us more about the program and how to apply. Take it away, Peggy and Mary.
Thank you, Tony. And I will start to share my screen so that you can see our presentation. And we're delighted to be here, to be in Italy, at least virtually today. And thank you to the embassies and the many U.S. consulates there for putting this together. So today I'm delighted to talk about the Young Transatlantic Innovation Leaders Initiative. And we do refer to it, as Tony said, as YTILI. And it is a program sponsored by the U.S. Department of State with funding by the U.S. government and implemented by WorldChicago. This is a program that really features the best and the brightest entrepreneurs from all across Europe. Through this program, we will bring 60 young entrepreneurs from all 45 European countries to the US for a fellowship program. And the goals of the program are, as you see on the screen, really to build this transatlantic partnership between the US and Europe, which is longtime, of course, trading partners and longtime allies and friends. And we really work on developing that relationship further. We're looking at building entrepreneurial skills and leadership skills of young entrepreneurs and helping them go back and promote entrepreneurship as a viable opportunity in their communities and be leaders in their entrepreneurial fields and their sectors. And of course, one of the best results, which I'm sure you'll hear from the alumni, is the network that is created from the fellows who participate in this program. They have a network of other entrepreneurs across Europe with the other 44 countries, as well as across the ocean with the US. So that's the goal of the program. So the outline of the program, again, 60 people will be selected for the first year from 45 European countries. And the meat of the program is a 5-week experience in the US. In March of 2022, we trust that travel will be safe and vaccines rolled out by then. So it can be actually happening in March of 2022. We'll start the program with 3-day opening orientation session in Chicago. And then the fellows will go to 9 cities across the US where they will have a 4-week fellowship. In this fellowship, they will live with a host family in the city of their innovation hub. We're calling our 9 cities innovation hubs. They'll live with the host family. They will get up and they'll commute to their workplace, just like we commute every day down to work. And they will be part of the office. They will have one host organization where they work, they do projects, they attend meetings, they do job shadowing, and they understand the business culture and how entrepreneurship is developed in the United States. So that will be the highlight, the 4 weeks in the fellowship, and then closing out the program in Washington, D.C. in April before returning back to Europe. Now, before this happens, there will be a 4-month virtual entrepreneurship program, a once-a-month program, workshop for a couple hours, and 4 months post-program. There will continue to be the virtual engagement. And then in September, we do the final closing summit, which will be in Ljubljana, Slovenia in September of 2022. And some of the host supervisors from the host organizations will come over to Ljubljana and participate in that summit and then spend a week with the fellow, helping them further their action plan. And when we talk about action plans, the fellows, while they're in the U.S., are developing a plan that will impact their communities and help them share the experience they've had in the U.S. Beyond themselves, beyond their team, but to the broader community. So the application is due March 1st, and Mary will talk about this, but we encourage you not to wait because it is a multi-step application. And following the application review, there will be video interviews for some of the semifinalists, and the finalists will continue on. But I'm going to turn the microphone over to my colleague, Mary Sancibrian, to continue talking about the application.
Hi, thank you, Peggy. And so in order to participate in all of these fantastic program components that Peggy outlined, you do need to go through the application process. So I want to start with the technical eligibility. You must be between the ages of 25 and 35 by March 1st, which is the closing of our application window. And so I strongly encourage you to get started on the application today if possible. You must be living and working in your country of citizenship. In this case, for most of you, is Italy. You need to be proficient in English, have at least 2 years of professional experience, and you cannot be a U.S. government employee or an alumni of an exchange program that has been sponsored by the Department of State in the last 5 years. And in addition to the technical eligibility, some of the other criteria that we are looking for in the application are some of these qualities in an ideal candidate. That includes leadership ability. So how do you display leadership in your community or in your business or organization? We are also looking for applicants who understand and connect to the YTILI program goals. Peggy touched on them earlier in the presentation. They're also outlined on the website, so I encourage you to go to the website and check those out further. And we are also looking for someone who is ready for the cultural exchange. It's supposed to be an educational experience where you can learn from your host organization and your host family, and they can learn from you. Our applicants need to have an innovative mindset. How do you respond to challenges in your work or your community? And then finally, potential for high impact follow-on activities. So how are you going to take what you learn in YTILI and really implement it in your community or in your And then our application itself, it's sort of broken up into two parts. And the first part is the applicant profile. And this is just a way for us to collect contact information, how you heard about YTILI. And then once you submit that application, the profile, you will be taken to our general application. And please do not worry about reading all of this on the screen right now. As I said regarding some of this information, it is all on the website, all on the application. So our application, it's a way for us to collect, that information for technical eligibility, background on your business and organization. But really the crux of it is short answer questions and a statement of purpose, as well as a letter of recommendation. So this is a way where you can really showcase those other qualities that I had outlined, from leadership ability to an innovative mindset. So it is an extensive experience in the application. I really do encourage you not to wait to the last minute. And I cannot wait to see what comes in from you all. And if you have any questions, you can also email ytili-info@worldchicago.org, or again, visit the website. There is a way to contact us through that as well. And thank you so much, and I'll hand it back over to Tony.
Peggy, Mary, thank you all so much for that presentation, for that information. And of course, I hear the one sort of most important point is to start the application process now. So hopefully those who are listening in the audience today will, after this presentation, go straight to the website and start thinking about what the application process looks like. Great. I want to now pass the virtual microphone to the co-founder of EduActive and a 2018 alumna of YTILI, Anna Peeva, who will share her experience.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anna, and I'm delighted to be here today with you. As an alumna, I would like to focus more my speech today, or let's say my exchange today with all of you, on what does the YTILI experience meant for me, but even more, what does YTILI give to me in the years to follow. As soon it's going to be 3 years since I attended the program. It's really important, as everyone mentioned before, especially Peggy and her team member, that you have to start your application early. Why? Because it's a pretty competitive application process, and the selection process is pretty competitive. So it's not a process where you apply just for the sake of applying. You apply because you have a clear idea what do you want to do and why do you want to apply. Mary and Peggy and their team and everyone at YTILI are doing a great job in showing everything online and explaining why you should attend. In my situation, it was 1 year after I have co-founded officially my venture, but more than 2 years since I was already working on it unofficially. So it was like the right moment when we were thinking about getting to the American market, but getting to the American market differently, because before that we were on the American market, but we were bringing clients to the American market. So for us, it was to get immersed into the American ecosystem, into the United States ecosystem, but not into the traditional one. And when I say traditional, I mean in New York and San Francisco, because because usually when you say startup, United States, a big market, people unfortunately think only about New York and San Francisco. And I don't want to be discriminated, but that's like just from my experience. So for us, it was, we wanted to get to other markets. We wanted to get to know better the United States, and we wanted to know better, to get to know better the educational system, and also the opportunities of working with youngsters, but specifically schools inside the United States in different areas. So that's why I decided to apply personally as a co-founder of Eduactive, but it was also a decision of the venture. And this is a really important point here, because you have to be really, really aware that you're applying as a leader yourself. So you're applying as a leader that is ready to commit hours and time to both the program once you're selected and once you're in the States, but you're also, as a leader, willing to give back to your community once you're back in your country, in your citizenship country. So this is really, really, really interesting, because into let's say the fil rouge of all these parts and exchange is that once you're back from your experience, you're having a huge network of people, of alumni, of thinkers that think as you do or don't think as you do, but you share same ideas, and you really want to use that and to give back to your community, but also give back to your venture. So my call is, before applying, get a piece of paper and think really wisely, why are you applying? The second point is that you are not getting, and I ask Mary and Peggy to correct me if this is wrong, because in my year it was like that, you're not having the opportunity to choose your city. They're choosing it for you. For me, it was Charlotte in North Carolina, and I couldn't be happier from this point of view to be there, because I learned that they in North Carolina have a really, really good educational system, and they have a really, really good social enterprises giving back to the community and organizing endeavors for young people that are willing to get included and willing to become, what I love to say, entrepreneurs of their future, let's say, of their pathway. This is really important, because all the people who were placed in North Carolina with me in Charlotte were all working into the educational sector. So for me, it was really interesting that I got to know the ecosystem of North Carolina. We had really, really great mentors that year, but I also get to know people from Europe that were working in the very same topic as I did. It was either education or young people connected to getting to the job market. So it was like a two win-win part of the story. Being in North Carolina, we've been in that period for 2 weeks, but then we got the chance to go to DC, which I think that in your case is going to be Chicago, to actually get to know each other and get to know the entire Department of State and the entire alumni situation, because that's something that you really like to think about when you apply to US Department of State program, is that you're going to stay and you're going to have an access into the alumni database. That's important, because when we were in DC and when we were doing all our program, there were also participants of the same program for Latin America. So we got the chance to meet also with US officials, of US Department of State officials, and to speak about how can we actually create a stronger alumni network, which by today, so far, we are working on, and we are doing great, like giving back small activities to our communities and exchanging ideas. For all those of you who may be like as young as I was when I applied to the program, it may sound funny and it may sound too much, but it's not. And it is like really important, the network of exchanging your problems. And this is like what pandemic show us, because I remember that when the pandemic kicked, I was chatting with people that were in the same field as I am, and thinking about, okay, what are we doing? Are you putting people aside? Are you applying for grants? What's good? What's bad? What's your country doing? So it was like a community that was helping you. We were supporting each other in such important times as the pandemic was when it kicked, and when we were like, as an entrepreneurs, all of us lost. So I would say that it's absolutely important to think about the network when you think about the place and about the topic when you want to do. I would like, just because I think that my time is a little bit limited, to just spend one more minute on the application process. Apply, as I said before, with an idea. Explain to everyone who's reading your application, because your application is going to have something like 3 phases of selection before you get the interview. And it's really, really competitive. In my year, if I'm not mistaken, it was something like 10 to 15% got selected only out of everyone who applied. Show them why you're the right candidate, and also ensure that you have a broader wisdom, like a broader picture of what's happening, and why do you want to have your YTILI experience, because it's not only an experience to be there. Understand that it's not a holiday at all. Understand also that you're committing to an important program. What does that mean? That means that sometimes you will have to wake up at 3 a.m. American time, work on your venture, and then go follow up on the program. And it's totally worth it, because you're going to have this different perspective while you're there in those 5 weeks or whatever it is. But then when you come back, you'll come back with too much of new knowledge that is going to be declined into every area of your work, and you're going to have different perspective of whatever you're doing with your enterprise. For me, I'm going to close out with one interesting story that happened during my period in YTILI, is that I get to meet, when I was in Charlotte, I get to meet the co-founder of the venture, which I met the other co-founder when I was on another exchange program in the States also. So it was really interesting to see different points of view and different positions of the same company that I already knew and was already on the market for 3 or 4 years in that time. This to say that there are a lot of tangible ways of working, but you don't have to expect that the program is going to work them out for you. It's you who have to work them out. And it's you who have to get the maximum out of the program. It's not a program that is going to teach you how to be like an entrepreneur. It's a program that's going to give you tools that you have to take and become an entrepreneur and resolve your challenges. So for me, it was a great experience. I would repeat it once again if I could right now after this pandemic, I mean in 2022. But in between, I really encourage you to give it the important weight of to give it the right weight of importance, and to apply strategically, thinking about why do you need it. And if you're not sure that you need it right now, organize it well and apply next year. Thank you, Tony. Back to you, hoping that I didn't took too much time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anna. I thought it was fascinating what you said about the diversity of ecosystems in the United States. And I do think that that's one of the strengths of sort of the entrepreneurial sector in the United States, that there is that much diversity. It's not just New York and, Silicon Valley. It's much bigger. Great. Well, let's turn to Luigi Fidelio, who is the co-founder of Messagenius and a 2019 alumnus of YTILI.
Hi, everyone. Or I should better say, hi, y'all, like they used to say in Austin, the house town where I was during my YTILI experience. I am Luigi Fidelio. I'm co-founder and CMO of Messagenius. We do a secure enterprise messaging software for corporates. And I had the privilege to belong to the amazing 2019 cohort. If I had to describe what YTILI has meant to me, I would say that it was a real cornerstone, not just in my career, but in my entire life path. It's been the perfect whirlwind of emotions, enthusiasm, and inspiration that I needed in order to get my entrepreneurial mindset to the next level. When I describe this experience, I usually adopt the metaphor of the Olympic delegation. So think about being immersed in an Olympic delegation full of other great players, great athletes. They are excellence in their own disciplines. And this allows you to grow your ambition, to grow your talent, and also to find people that can be sparring partners, that can be business partners, why not, or providers of services for your business. I still remember the really meaningful conversations that I had with my peers on the business, on work-life balances, on personal challenges, and so on. And these are relationships that are still lasting in my life. I would give you some very tangible examples of how YTILI has impacted not only the time I spent there, but my career path also in these days. I still see it bringing value to my venture. Think about when the pandemic kicked. You know, in my company, we had a sales strategy that was all based on direct sales, on meetings, face-to-face meetings. When we had to change our sales model, I immediately thought about who could help me doing this. And, you know, one of the top talented fellows that I had in my cohort actually runs a sales agency, a remote sales agency. And I immediately made contact with him. And now this is the third month of our collaboration. So they've become Message Genius providers of services. Another fellow, now that I'm trying to enter the financial services market with our value proposition that we have readapted for that sector, a fellow that is an absolute expert in that field has offered to circulate our value proposition in his network of top decision makers in the financial sector. So these are just examples of how YTILI, in very concrete and tangible terms, is still bringing value to my career path and also to my life. Because if you see my chat screen, one of the most frequent groups that pops up in my screen is actually the one that I've created together with my Austin squad. So the people that were with me in Austin, and actually my two best friends in the fellow. We made the first reunion, so they traveled to Italy, to Naples, just 2 months after the fellowship, for the sake of meeting and having great time together. If I had to talk about the town where I was, Austin, I think there's the motto, the business alliance of the town has chosen to describe itself, would be the perfect slogan for the town, and actually it is keep Austin weird. It was a great ecosystem of innovation, very curious entrepreneurs, where cross-pollination was really visible and really vibrant in the air. So it was a great experience. I would second what was saying before. It was great not to be in one of those mainstream Silicon Valley places that we really learn about from social media, from the news. It was great to discover that there are hidden gems in the US that have great innovation ecosystem. Actually, you can imagine the shock for me of passing from a country that has a growing but still limited venture capital ecosystem like the one of Italy, to a town like Austin, where the Association of Business Angels was actually desperately looking for opportunities to invest. They had more money than investment opportunities there. So it was really a cultural shock in that sense, and a great opportunity to put my boots on the ground on a totally different ecosystem. Plus, last year I had the opportunity my fellowship was also paired with a Global Entrepreneurship Summit in The Hague. So I really had the opportunity to see other ecosystems also in Europe, thanks to YTILI. I don't have any specific tip for the application. And in this sense, I would actually use the words of one of my mentors who wrote me a really touching reference letter for YTILI. And she always tells me, for the things that really matter in your life, improvisation is not really a strategy. So what I would recommend to any applicant to YTILI is work on building your robust candidate case. So go through the application, assess your strengths, and gather the best feedbacks that you can have from your mentors and from people that can write you a valuable reference letter. Yeah, this is definitely the top tip that I can share. No shortcut, but really work on your candidate case, because YTILI can be not just a medal on your chest, not just a validation mark on your venture, but it can be a really life-changing experience. And I wish you all to live in the same way that I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Luigi. Yes, keep Austin weird. One of the things that's really interesting about a place like Austin is how you have the nexus of the entrepreneurial community, the creative startups, and alongside of that, all sorts of other creative people. I mean, Austin is a cradle for music and culture, and it's also the home of Texas Instruments, or it's where Texas Instruments was founded. So it had, there's a lot of different energies that come together into these ecosystems sometimes, and that goes back to what Enna also said about the diversity of these spaces in the United States and the opportunities that spring out from under them. And yeah, wonderful that you were in a place where the angel investors had more money than they knew what to do with. That's not always the case anywhere in the world, including the United States, but good for Austin. Thank you again, Luigi. I want to move now to Paola Bellingheri. She is a 2017 alumna of YTILI, and she is the co-founder of Ice King.
All right, thank you. So hopefully you can see my screen. So yes, Ice King is an app combining sustainable tourism and citizen science to make tourists more aware of their impact during their vacation, and to have them support scientists in gathering data which can help us understand how glaciers respond to climate change. And when I applied to YTILI, we had come freshly out of winning the NASA International Space Apps Challenge. So actually our idea was developed over 48 hours in a hackathon, and we were looking at really how we could make this into a viable business. So for me, YTILI couldn't have come at a better time, because it exposed me to this amazing network of innovators and entrepreneurs, both European and from the US, that I was really able to capitalize on, even in this very early phase of the startup. So as my colleagues already said, it is the program that picks out your host city. And I was rather surprised when I was assigned to Salt Lake City in Utah. But in hindsight, it was a wonderful match, because even though I had heard of the city only because of the Winter Olympics and as a cradle of the Mormon faith, it actually turned out to be an incredibly vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem with a lot of focus on startups that actually have an impact. And so for my startup, it was really, really interesting. We got to meet with impact investors, so venture capitalists that were specifically geared to social enterprises. We got to spend several weeks at the Brigham Young University's Accelerator and Entrepreneurship Hub. We were invited to pitch competitions across town where we were able to present our ideas. And we spent many hours also with our local host, Tim Cooley, talking about how to prototype and test your ideas, how to pivot business models. We also had an invitation, for example, to the local Oktoberfest for European expats in Salt Lake City. So a lot of different networking opportunities and a lot of different perspectives that were given to us on our companies. So I came back to Europe with a lot of insights about what really needed to happen to get Ice King off the ground, and I've been working on those ever since. Now, as my colleague said as well, YTILI wasn't just about the period spent in the US, but I have to say that also for me, the network of incredible people, which were all brilliant, very motivated, very enthusiastic innovators and entrepreneurs that I met both in Washington, DC, and then again in Berlin when the program actually closed, have become lifelong friends, mentors, and business partners that are still teaching me a lot today. So also to give you some examples, for example, here we have Janko, who is now one of the key suppliers for Ice King. So he coded all of our apps, and I actually recruited him during the YTILI program. When I went out to test my app in Iceland, Eva was able to show me around there and connect me with the local entrepreneurship ecosystem, as was Meg when I went to Portugal, teaching me more about sustainable tourism in cities, which might be a further development for the company. Also, though, the great thing is becoming part of the network of US alumni enabled me also to implement further projects which were not connected with my business. And for example, together with Matteo Forte, we applied for an alumni small grants program, and we're implementing now a series of webinars where we look at how we can use what we've learned during the pandemic to actually make our cities better. So smart cities post-COVID. And together we're organizing a whole series of webinars on this topic in Italian. So if you're interested, I've put here the link where you can find more information. So YTILI isn't only about going to the US and learning about the US, but it's actually also about what you bring back to your local community and how you can take that further in actually supporting your local entrepreneurial ecosystem. So if I can give you a couple of tips on applying, I would say there's 3 keywords from my perspective. The first thing is, think about the impact that your venture or your idea, because it doesn't have to be a completely founded venture or a startup that's making money, but what impact it can have in the wider business community, in the wider entrepreneurial community, in your country, in Europe, and so forth. So this is something that even if you're not a social enterprise, your products, your services, the way you go about your business, all of this can have an impact, and this is something that is quite valued in your application. The second thing that was, I think, already mentioned is that you need to have a vision, not only of what you want out of the program, but of what you can do following the program and how you can put your skills and your capabilities and what you'll learn during the program at the service of the entrepreneurial community in your country. And finally, I would say, think about the US business ecosystem. Start finding out something about how it works. I got quite a few questions on that during the interview process, for example, and it helps to show an understanding and an appreciation of where you'll be going and what you can learn from that experience. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you, Paola, and maybe you'll have to tell us a little bit later more about your winning the NASA Space Apps Challenge, which is a program that, of course, comes from the United States and that we also work with as well. That's a wonderful achievement. And thank all of you for the outstanding presentations, for the information. I think you've made clear how special this opportunity is, the potential that there is for people who apply. And I hope that you've both provided some guidance and encouraged some of our listeners to or viewers to explore the application process sooner rather than later, as everyone has stressed. To our audience, I would remind you that you are free to start asking questions in the comment sections. We will try to get to them as many as we can that make sense and are appropriate. So just type into the comment section. Our team here and in Rome and in Florence and in Naples are standing by to send me the information, and I will ask them on your behalf to the panelists. And while we're waiting, I just want to very quickly recap a couple of points. Stephen, I don't know if you can bring up the information slide. Yeah. So remember, here's the place where to go. You can go to apply. It's www.YTILI-worldchicago.org. Eligibility, again, 25 to 35-year-old entrepreneurs, that's business and social entrepreneurs who have extant ventures. Deadline is March 1st, 2021. The program includes a mini MBA, a 5-week exchange in the United States, and a capstone regional innovation summit in Ljubljana, Slovenia. Okay, thanks, Stephen. So we have some questions coming in, and we have some questions also from our team. One question that one person has asked is, and this would probably be most appropriate for Peggy and Mary, is if somebody has had extensive peer experience in the United States prior to the application process, perhaps have been on a US government-sponsored program in the past, does that affect their eligibility?
Great question, thank you. They are able to apply if it's been 5 years since their last experience. We do like candidates who haven't had a lot of experience, so they have new exposure to the US, but it would not exclude you as long as it's been 5 years since your exchange on a State Department program. Great question, thank you.
Thank you. We have another question. This is for the alumni, and I think that I think each of you should respond to this briefly. And that is, one person had asked about whether there was time off during the 5-week experience in the United States in which that they could do work on their business. In other words, built-in working time. Obviously, we've learned today that that is not there is not a built-in working time for applicants. So to the alumni, how did each of you manage to be away for 5 weeks from your business? I think I recall Anna saying that in going, you're going as a leader, and it's a decision of the venture. It's not just you on your sort of personal quest in some respects. So clearly there's some support from the venture itself, but maybe each of you could talk about how you managed that distance while doing the program in the United States. Let's start with, we'll start with Anna. We'll just go in the same order that we went.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya, and thank you for whoever asked that question. Actually, you manage because the program is demanding, but you have the weekends off, so that's something that you have off. You, however, have the social part where you have some activities to attend from the social part of the program, but the weekends are pretty free and the days are full, but you can, however, find time in order to work on your venture. Honestly, you cannot work full-time on your venture. If you believe that you can work full-time and be on the program and manage everything, it's not possible. You can get advantage of the time zone, that's for sure, and like wake up earlier and go through some emails. But I would say that in percentage, it would be like 20% being able to work on your company in those 5 weeks, and then 80% following on the program. But honestly, from my point of view, from my period there, it's really useful. You will, of course, have to have a support from your co-founders or your team or whoever is supporting you in the venture. It's useful because you have your 5 weeks when you focus on your venture from a different point of view without the daily distraction. So it's like an innovation. You have to see it as an innovation investment when you where you invest your company from a different point of view, and you exchange about your company with your mentors, with your peers, with the other people around you, and you get the chance in 5 weeks to see your company from a different perspective. And I think that that's something that cannot be actually managed and with money or with how much you have to put in when it comes to time or whatever, because you're making an investment to your company. So it's like a long-term investment. I remember that we were having a lot of calls with my co-founders about what we maybe change and where like the new ideas come. So you have to ensure, I know that this sounds like an ideal world, but you really need to ensure that you have support from whoever is running your venture with you or whoever is on your team, because at the end of the day, YTILI is an experience for the leader itself, but it's also for the other people in the venture, because you all open your network indirectly.
Thanks. Luigi, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, from my point of view, I will actually use the same metaphor that I was using before, the one of the Olympics. When you're in the Olympics delegation, you're not really supposed to complain about how hard it can be to train right before the competition, right? So, I mean, it is absolutely manageable to dedicate most of the time to the program itself, and then in the spare hours that you have to stay in touch with your team. And at the end of the day, if you're an 9-to-5 job, so you know that you are really exposed to the trials and tribulations and challenges of the market. And when you are in the YTILI cohort, you have an added value. You have a great opportunity. You are surrounded by a cohort of people that can actually help you raise your level, raise the quality bar of your company. You're not supposed to actually work less because of that. Indeed, if you look at your site, you would find other cohort members that are working the double, both on the fellowship and on their own businesses. So it's actually an uplift effect. I would define like an uplifting effect, the one that you would get from the rest of the cohort in order to dedicate energies both to the fellowship and to your business.
Great, thanks. You know, we actually have some other questions, and I thought I'll just, Paola, if I can, I think we got good answers from Luigi and Anna on that. If I can ask you a different question. This is a really interesting one, and I think you as an educator at the university level might be poised to answer it. We have a question from Alex G on YouTube. So, how can high school students develop themselves to participate in this kind of program in the future?
That is a great question. And I think, I mean, thanks to the pandemic, actually, I can give you a much simpler answer than before, meaning that there is so much content right now online, and it's about learning about entrepreneurship first of all, but also going further and learning what you are passionate about, okay, what makes you tick, whatever subject that is. Because in the end, being an entrepreneur is about finding an idea that you're passionate about and pursuing it because you are sure that nobody else could do it the way you have a vision for it. And so I think, I mean, if you're in high school, what you can do is think about, you know, what makes you passionate? What are the topics that you're interested in? And then find content. And when our world opens up again, there are accelerators and incubators in a lot of major cities there where you can attend events. They have events on weekends. You can start connecting with like-minded individuals and take it from there. That would be my suggestion.
Great, thank you very much. For our WorldChicago colleagues, we have an interesting question from Xanthi Soriano. If one is living in the United States and is interested in hosting YTILI participants, how do they go about expressing their interest in that?
That's great. We're always looking for homestay hosts or for organizational hosts. We are using 9 cities in the US for our innovation hubs, but I would encourage them to go to the Global Ties Network because there's WorldChicago organizations in 90 cities across the US that have great opportunities to interact with excellent, talented professionals like Paola, Luigi, and Ina. So globaltiesus.org, and it's a great way to connect with emerging leaders from all over the world through the Department of State.
Great, thank you. I'm going to keep asking questions that we're getting from the audience, and I'll just ask them to you individually rather than have everybody weigh in, because I think we'll have enough questions that everybody will have a chance to respond. And go back to Anna. And remember, some people are joining the program a little bit later, so they may not have heard something earlier in the program. We have a question about your impression of the application process, and in particular, if you could just talk a little bit about how you prepared for the application process, as opposed to, you know, just the interview. What can somebody do to gather the information that they need to be effective in the application process?
Okay, I'll start with a little disclaimer that I'll speak about my year, and what I invite you to do is to read what are they asking this year, because program requirement changes every time, and that's normal because world changes, as we have seen. I remember that when I was writing the application, my first doubt was, will I make it? First, in terms of time, because I learned about the program some 3 weeks before it ended. And it was also requiring a business plan, a detailed one, an updated one. And it was requiring also the recommendation letters from people who really know you and who can support you and who can actually explain who you are. So I remember that in that time I was for work in Ecuador. And what I did, I just took one afternoon off. I printed all the documents, all the list from the website of YTILI. And then I wrote like, okay, what can I do about this? And does this suit me about every single point? And I know that this can sound a little bit funny or a little bit like too high school, but that's how actually it works, because there is a lot of documents that you need to upload on the site and you don't need to forget anything. So once you actually put your brain on it and you decide what you have and what you don't have, you start calculating your time about how much time do you have about something and how much time you don't have about something. I would suggest that you start contacting the people who you're asking about the recommendation letter, because that's something where you will need someone else to commit their time before you apply, and then start working on the questions and on the business plan if it's still asked for. There is a significant part which is called the essay questions, which was in my case, and it's really important that those essay questions doesn't only represent yourself, but they do represent how you see the world and your company and how was the birth process of it, and how do you think it's going to suit the entire program in the United States, and also in your case how it's going to suit the MBA program, which is going to be a really important part of your venture. I remember that the year after I was reading applications as a peer review, and I was really interacted about that, because it was really interesting to see from a different point of view how we perceive each other. And if I can say one thing from all the applications I have read, I think that I read something like 10 applications because each of us had some amount, is that people don't know you. You have to get the opportunity to people to get to know you. I was presuming a lot of stuff from the applications because there were not enough of information, because the applicants were thinking that I know them or whoever was reading that. And that's difficult for the examiner because we're not allowed to presume stuff. So you have just to base your decision only on what you read. But if you don't give the examiner or whoever is doing the review enough material to get to know you, they wouldn't. So just think about the entire application process as you have to present yourself and you have to convince these people that you're the right person that they want to invest in. It's just like when you're pitching your company, just this time you're pitching both your company and yourself.
Thank you so much. Good advice. Start early. That's the other message. You have to keep emphasizing that. Start early. Luigi, a question for you. You talked about the keep Austin weird, but and everyone's talked about sort of the amazing ecosystems in which they work. And those ecosystems don't happen by accident, right? That's the concerted effort by local governments, by local businesses, investors, the university systems. Were there things that you observed in the U.S. sort of startup entrepreneurial ecosystem that you think could be replicated in Italy? Or are there lessons or things that you observed that could be used here in Italy to drive entrepreneurialism? Or does Italy, or is there enough already in place?
Well, there's still a lot to do in Italy, I would say. And considering the ecosystem that I found in Austin, I think that there is a lot that can be done, even at zero cost, in terms of financial resources, in terms of curiosity and willingness to nurture the cross-pollination among entrepreneurs. Actually, the culture of people there was very open. This Keep Austin Weird motto really. So I remember in the networking events, there was a great climate that I would really want to experience also in Italian events, in which people were mingling and talking to each other and really interesting without the kind of limitations that would be based on formality that sometimes we in Italy tend to exceed on. There was this very direct climate among people at events during the networking that really allowed me to create relationships in a more easier way, even just to have a quick conversation about something that I found interested there and I would like to implement in my business too. So that kind of cultural aspect is something that I would really like that we as an Italian ecosystem absorb when approaching other businesses, approaching other entrepreneurs, believing in the quality of cross-pollination.
Right. No, that's really helpful. And it gives us something to think about as we pursue ways to, through the U.S. mission to Italy, to continue to engage social entrepreneurs and promote programs like this. So that's really helpful. For WorldChicago, can you say briefly how the online course will be organized? I think both in terms of the time or the way in which people interact with it. Is it 2 hours on the weekend? Is it during the week?
Absolutely. It's going to be, again, it's 4 months before the U.S. experience and 4 months afterwards. Before the U.S. experience, it is talking about some of the best practices and leadership skills needed in entrepreneurship. So one session might talk about marketing your business. One session might talk about traits of successful entrepreneurs, and another might talk about that big challenge of organizational management. It's one thing to start a company, but it's another to run a company, and how you can transition your talents and skills to that. They will be 2-hour workshops online, virtually, and then they will have a offline component where you'll be working with a small group working on a project. But it will be about 2 to 4 hours per month. on the months leading up to the US experience, and again, the same on the months leading afterwards, where you'll really spend more time synthesizing your experience and learning how to apply your lessons learned to your work back home in Europe. So that's kind of the outline of the virtual entrepreneurship curriculum. Thank you.
And actually, Peggy, while I have you, quickly, can you just quickly say what expenses are covered as part of the YTILI Fellowship?
Most all of them. So we will cover your flights, your housing is covered, your food is taken care of while you're in the US. So your big expenses are going to be when you want to buy some souvenirs and things to take back to your family. The fellowship, your transportation, your commuting costs are all covered as a part of the program. So you're able to fully dive in and really experience the program and not worry about costs. So.
Great. Can we, and maybe we'll start with Paola and we'll go Paola to Luigi and then Anna. Can you give us a bit of wisdom that you got from an American entrepreneur, something that while you're in the well, it doesn't have to be while you're in the United States, an entrepreneur who gave you a golden nugget of wisdom that has stuck with you? Hopefully you did get one.
Oh, I got more than one. Much more than one, yes. But I think one that's really stuck out for me. I remember one day there was I went to a pitch competition, and there was someone who had a T-shirt that said, "Startups don't fail, founders quit." And the idea behind this is that when you have a startup, you need to test your ideas on the market and test them as quickly as possible, see what works and what doesn't work. You can pivot and really try to get that product market fit. And the way they do that in the US is so immediate and so fast and so smart. And it was one of the key takeaways that I brought back to my company for sure, and that I've been trying to implement so far. And it impressed quite an acceleration on my business, but also a complete change in business model, which ended up actually changing the co-founder group as well, because some people didn't agree with the new model, but it's led us to where we are today. And I remember also one of my my colleagues who was in Salt Lake City with me actually applied that system and ended up discontinuing his idea and going back and founding another enterprise, which is now wildly successful. So I think this whole idea of as soon as you have something in mind, test it, go to the customer, prototype it, make a mock-up. That was very valuable for me, and the whole idea of pivoting until you get it right.
That's great. A great story. How about you, Luigi?
There has been a great life lesson that I've learned there from an entrepreneur who had funded an accelerator that was very close to his house, actually, who was accepting applicants, focused only on applicants that were coming from abroad. This guy had built his venture decades before as an immigrant from Greece. And once he was kind of retired, he was just deciding where to put his money on. He decided to create this accelerator by which he could give something back to people that were in his same situation, the same situation where he was decades before, to allow them to grow their business in the US. And it was not just a program on paper. I could actually visit the accelerator, and his house was just at the site. And the entrepreneurs, the hosted entrepreneurs, they would live in his house together with him in the initial months of the acceleration program. So I could really perceive that genuine sense of giving back something that you have received by an ecosystem. That is a life lesson that I learned there in the US. And, you know, even in just very practical episodes, this was just an encounter for me in a business environment. But on the day after our meeting, I had left him my business card. He reached out to me to invite the entire Austin cohort, Austin group, to a breakfast. So 12 hours later, all of us, we were there in this cafe dining with a successful entrepreneur. And it was something that was very inclusive for the entire Austin cohort. So this culture of giving something back has been a great takeaway message that I've learned from my experience in Austin.
Great, thank you so much. Anna.
I would say that I would follow up on what Paula said, because for me, it was really something similar. We were staying one night after the pitch competition in Charlotte before we were flying to DC, and we were speaking specifically about how we want the company that we're going to run one day perfectly is going to look like. And then there was one of the mentors who said, but then if you already have the idea, the perfect idea of how do you want your company to look like that you're going to run one day, why don't you start running it as it is like that immediately today? And actually, I think that in this small piece of wisdom is the entire philosophy from my point of view, my young point of view of entrepreneurship, that if you can imagine it, if you know how you wanted it, you have to start acting immediately and not giving up until you have it as it is. And that's something I really, really love about the energy of the American ecosystem, both from the YTILI, but also from my previous and afterwards experience in the States, is that when people from the ecosystem, when entrepreneurs have their idea and when they know how their company looks like in their heads or their project or their venture, they act as it's already happened and they work hard in order to have it at the end as they wanted. And I think that's something that we always need to have in our mind when we are running our companies, but also when we're defining our positions inside our companies.
That's great. Thank you so much, Anna. Well, it's been an hour. We've come to the end of our time. I think these were really amazing presentations, and I'm always really excited as somebody who works for the U.S. mission overseas to have the opportunities in country to meet alumni, because I think if we're paying attention, the young entrepreneurs who have come through these programs are outstanding. They run amazing ventures, and they're giving back to their communities. They are impact leaders, and that's just really exciting to see. It's really exciting to participate in it, and I hope that those of you who are listening are excited, and that you will apply for this program, and that you will keep applying. You have a 10-year window in which you can keep applying. I want to thank Peggy Parfenoff and Mary Sancibrian, Anna Peeva, Luigi Fidelio, and Paolo Belligeri for being so incredibly generous with their time and sharing their experiences and their knowledge about the program. I want to thank all of the viewers out there for your time, for tuning in, joining us, asking questions, and participating today. We deeply appreciate that. We have a lot of programs that are going to be happening as part of our Transatlantic Thursdays this month, and I just want to mention a few of them to you because I hope that you will return on February 11th when we'll have a program on showcasing diversity through music with the conductor and artistic director of the Refugee Orchestra of Florence, Lydia Yankovskaya, the musician Silvia La Rocca from the all-women orchestra Almara, and Professor Renata Pepicelli from the University of Pisa. That's going to be a fabulous program. That's February 11th, and we'll have the invitations up on our Facebook page probably tomorrow. Also then, it's February, it's Black History Month. This is something that we observe every year, and we're dedicating February 18th and February 25th Transatlantic Thursdays to two exciting programs for Black History Month. On the 18th, we have Pulitzer Prize winning author and professor Jeffrey Stewart, who will present on the challenges, struggles, and successes of African Americans in the STEM field. And STEM is an acronym for science, technology, education, and mathematics. And the 25th of February, we have the American poet and essayist, editor and professor Camille Dungy, who will join us to talk about the much overlooked history and significance of African American nature poetry. So we're very excited about the rest of our programs for the month of February. Please join in. To keep up with our announcements, you can follow us on Facebook, as you already know. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter. And there's more information. We have a full slate for March as well. So we look forward to seeing you again on the 11th. Grazie a tutti, and thank you.